Hey everyone, and a huge welcome to the Sociopedia channel. Today, we're diving into a really important chapter from your Class 11 sociology book, Environment and Society. In this breakdown, we're going to unpack the deep and honestly pretty complicated relationship between the way we live and the world all around us. So you ready? Let's get into it.
So, what's on the agenda for today? First up, we're going to ask what exactly is the fundamental relationship between nature and society. Then, we'll face the tough reality of the major environmental crises we're dealing with right now. After that, we'll look at why these aren't just scientific issues, but are deeply social problems. And finally, we'll end on a hopeful note, asking, what does a sustainable future actually look like?
All right, let's jump right into our first section, Society's Ecological Basis. This is all about the fundamental connection between humans and nature. It might sound obvious, but this connection is so much deeper than you might think. We'll kick things off with a simple question. Just for a second, I want you to look at the things right around you. The chair you're sitting on, the book you're reading, your phone. Where did all of this stuff actually come from? If you trace any of these items back to their origin, I mean all the way back, the answer is always the same. It all started with nature. Every single thing is made from our planet's resources.
And that thought leads us to a key concept, ecology. So what does that mean? Well, it's the study of the complex web that connects all physical and biological systems. You know, rivers, mountains, forests, animals. And here's the most important takeaway from this. Humans aren't standing outside of this web just looking in. We are an integral part of it.
This interaction is a two-way street, as this slide shows so clearly. On one hand, you can see how nature shapes society. Think about fertile plains, which make agriculture and dense populations possible. But on the other hand, society dramatically alters nature. Our cities and industries literally reshape the natural world. It's a constant back-and-forth process.
So, if society is constantly changing nature, what are the consequences of that interaction, especially in the modern era? Well, that brings us to our next section, the major environmental crises of our time. This is where that relationship gets complicated and, frankly, pretty dangerous. We're going to break this down into a few specific problems and risks. We'll look at how we're running out of our natural resources, the different kinds of pollution that threaten our health, the huge crisis of global warming, the complex issues around genetically modified organisms or GMOs, where science can genetically alter our food, and finally, both natural and man-made disasters. First up, resource depletion. This basically means we're using up non-renewable resources so fast that they can't be replaced. For example, in states like Punjab and Haryana, the groundwater levels are dropping at an alarming rate. In the same way, precious topsoil, which takes thousands of years to form, is being lost to erosion and poor management. A huge driver of resource depletion is deforestation, which this slide illustrates. When we clear forests for farming or industry, we're not just cutting down trees, we're destroying entire ecosystems and the homes of countless species, which leads to a serious loss of biodiversity. Now let's talk about pollution. When we think of pollution, we often picture smoke pouring out of factory smokestacks. But one of the most serious and often overlooked problems is indoor air pollution. As you can see, in many rural homes, women who cook over traditional stoves inhale dangerous amounts of smoke, leading to severe health issues.
Of course, it's true that industrial smoke and vehicle exhaust are massive contributors to the air pollution crisis in our cities. This image gives us a glimpse of the problem, a problem that causes serious respiratory diseases and other health complications for millions of people.
The scale of this crisis is just staggering. According to the World Health Organization, in the year 2012 alone, about 7 million people died as a result of exposure to air pollution. That makes it the world's largest single environmental health risk. Just let that number sink in for a moment. And then there's global warming. Emissions of gases like carbon dioxide trap heat in the atmosphere, creating what's known as the greenhouse effect. This is causing a steady rise in global temperatures, which has terrifying consequences, like the melting of polar ice caps and the submersion of coastal areas.
Okay, so we've seen the problems, but are these just scientific or technical issues? Absolutely not. In this section, we're going to see how environmental problems are deeply intertwined with social problems like inequality.
This is a perfect and pretty stark example. In Kutch, where water is scarce, wealthy farmers can afford to dig these incredibly deep bore wells to irrigate their fields. But the knock-on effect is that this lowers the water table, causing the shallow wells that poorer villagers rely on to simply run dry. So the key point is this: your social and economic status often determines just how much you're affected by an environmental crisis.
To understand this connection even more deeply, let's look at one of the world's worst industrial disasters, the Bhopal gas tragedy. This was a man-made environmental catastrophe with devastating social consequences. That night, a leak of toxic gas from the Union Carbide factory killed roughly 4,000 people almost instantly, and hundreds of thousands more were left permanently disabled. The human cost was just horrific. So why did it happen? This was no freak accident. As the list of failures on this slide shows, it was a complete breakdown of social and corporate responsibility. Warnings were ignored, safety standards were cut, and staff was reduced to save money. This was a preventable tragedy, the result of a cascade of terrible decisions.
The philosopher Murray Bookchin summed this up perfectly. He argued that to solve our environmental problems, we first have to fix the deep-seated social problems at their root, things like inequality, greed, and injustice. That's the core idea of social ecology.
All right, after discussing these serious problems, what's the path forward? This final section explores a concept that offers a hopeful way to move ahead, the idea of a sustainable future. That path is called sustainable development. The idea, as laid out in the Brundtland Report, is simple but powerful. We need to meet our own needs today, but in a way that doesn't prevent future generations from meeting theirs. It's really about balancing three crucial things: environmental protection, social justice, and economic development. You can't sacrifice one for the others. It's about progress that lasts.
Mahatma Gandhi warned us about this decades ago. He saw that a model of development based on endless consumption and exploitation, like in the West, just wasn't sustainable. If a country like India followed that same path, it would exhaust the world's resources. He wasn't against progress, but he was questioning the model of progress we were chasing. It's a profound thought that's more relevant today than ever.
And this leaves us with the most critical question of all. It all comes down to this. How do we build a society where development is for everyone, not just a select few, where the distribution of resources is fair and just? This is truly the greatest challenge of our time.
And with that, we'll wrap up this explainer. If you're looking for detailed notes on this chapter, you can find a link to our Telegram channel right down in the description below. Thanks so much for joining us.